You've got your zombie apocalypse loadout planned, don't you? Tactical vest, AR-15 with extended mags, maybe a katana because you watched too much anime, couple of Glocks, and a compound bow for that silent kill fantasy. You've spent hours on forums debating grain weight and draw length. You feel prepared. Here's the thing. That loadout weighs 40 pounds, requires constant maintenance, needs ammunition you'll never find, and makes you a walking loot piñata for anyone with basic pattern recognition. You're not gearing up for survival. You're cosplaying as a video game character, and the moment reality hits, that fantasy evaporates faster than your cardio after one stairwell sprint. The survival rate for people who prioritize firearms in the first 30 days of a zombie outbreak sits around 12%, according to disaster response modeling. Know what kills them? Not the zombies. It's other survivors who hear gunfire and come investigating, or running out of ammunition by day 4, or weapon malfunctions they can't fix without YouTube tutorials. Most people planning tactical loadouts right now won't survive contact with their own equipment choices. Here's what separates the 15% who make it past month 1 from the 85% who become statistics. They understood weapons as tools with specific jobs, not status symbols. They packed 5 things that actually work, maintained them with duct tape and spite, and lived long enough to regret surviving. Let's talk about what those 5 weapons actually are, and why everything you think you know about zombie survival is probably going to kill you. If you're the kind of person who thinks about this stuff seriously, and if you're still watching, you are, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel exists for people who want tactical reality, not fantasy. We're building a community that thinks harder than it shoots. All right, let's get into it. First, let's establish parameters because specificity saves lives. We're talking standard Romero-style slow-moving, infected, shambling, persistent, overwhelming through numbers, not speed. They don't run, they don't climb well, but they never stop and they never get tired. Transmission is fluid contact, bites, scratches, blood to blood. You're starting in a suburban environment, with whatever you can grab in the first 6 hours before the roads completely lock. No military background, average fitness, and the clock is ticking. Your job isn't to fight, it's to survive long enough to reach somewhere defensible, then maintain that position while supplies dwindle and your options compress. Most people start planning their zombie loadout with guns because guns feel powerful, and distance feels like safety. Sounds reasonable until you run the actual math. 1,000 rounds of 5.56 ammunition weighs about 30 pounds. At a conservative estimate of 10 rounds per confirmed kill, because adrenaline destroys aim and headshots aren't point and click, you've got maybe 100 zombies before you're holding an 8-pound club. Every gunshot announces your location to every infected and every desperate survivor within a quarter mile. Suppressors don't work like the movies. They just make it harder to pinpoint your exact position, and they're expensive paperweights without subsonic ammunition. The gun fantasy collapses the moment you realize firearms are dinner bells, not solutions. Here's your actual loadout. Weapon 1. A 3-pound engineer's prybar, 18 inches long, hardened steel. Not sexy, not tactical. Boring as hell and worth more than your life. This thing opens doors, breaks windows, pries boards, and crushes skulls with mechanical advantage you don't need CrossFit to generate. It never runs out of ammunition. It doesn't jam, you can't lose it in the dark, because you tie paracord through the handle hole and loop it to your belt. When you're exhausted, when your hands are shaking, when you've got 30 seconds to breach a door before the mob rounds the corner, this bar doesn't care about your feelings or your technique. You just wedge, lever, and move. The prybar does something else most people miss. It's a psychological anchor. When you're making decisions in crisis mode, you need tools that don't require thinking. Complexity kills. A firearm requires sight picture, breathing, trigger discipline, malfunction drills, and tactical reloads. A prybar requires angry ape brain and forward momentum. You can teach someone to use it effectively in 30 seconds. You can use it when you're injured, when you're half asleep, when you're so stressed you can't remember your own name. It's idiot-proof, and in a crisis, we're all idiots. Weapon 2 makes people laugh until they need it. A standard firefighter's Halligan bar. But here's where we get specific. The 30-inch forged steel version, not the aluminum training prop. This is the prybar's bigger brother, weighing around 9 pounds, and it's not for zombies. It's for the world between you and safety. Every building you need to access, every vehicle you need to search, every barrier between you and resources, the Halligan opens it. The adze end punches through sheet metal, the fork end spreads door jambs, and the claw end rips, tears, and pries with enough mechanical advantage to bend steel. Here's what people don't tell you about zombie survival. You'll spend exponentially more time dealing with locks, barricades, and urban infrastructure than fighting infected. The first 72 hours, everyone's looting the same obvious spots: grocery stores, pharmacies, sporting goods. By hour 80, you need to access places other people couldn't reach. Second-floor offices, locked storage units, chained warehouses, welded security gates. The Halligan gets you into spaces picked clean. Survivors can't access and infected can't follow. It's the difference between starving in a stripped convenience store and eating canned goods from a locked janitor's closet on the third floor of an office building. And when you absolutely have to fight, 9 pounds of forged steel to the skull solves problems permanently. You don't swing it like a bat. You let gravity and weight do the work, dropping it like a splitting maul. Efficiency over effort. The obvious question: why carry both? Weight distribution and role separation. The prybar lives on your belt for immediate access. It's your oh shit tool. The Halligan rides in a backpack or strapped to your pack because it's your planning tool, your I need inside that building solution. You don't draw it unless you've got 30 seconds to think, and when you do, you're committing to loud, decisive action. They're not redundant, they're complementary. Different jobs, different tools, same philosophy. Mechanically simple, impossibly reliable, weighted toward leverage over strength. Weapon 3 is where we separate tacticians from tacticals, a 4-pound sledgehammer with a 30-inch handle. Not a framing hammer, not a rubber mallet, not a tactical tomahawk. A straight-up hardware store sledge. This is your force multiplier for barricading, demolition, and close-quarters problem-solving. Every interior door you need to secure, you're sinking the deadbolt and then hammering a 2x4 brace at 45 degrees, from floor to door handle. Every window at ground level gets boarded, and those boards get sledged flush until the nails seat completely. Speed and permanence matter because you're racing exhaustion and time. But here's the real value: structural modification under pressure. You need to drop a section of stairs behind you, sledge through the support stringers. You need to collapse a doorway to buy time. 3 hits to the weakest load point, and gravity handles the rest. You need to break through a brick wall into an adjacent unit? It'll take 20 minutes and every calorie you have, but the sledge makes it possible. The world becomes more malleable when you're carrying something designed to change shapes through blunt force. And yeah, it'll kill zombies. One overhead strike crushes everything from the collarbone up, but that's wasteful. You use the sledge for crowd control at choke points. Swing low, shatter knees and ankles. Create a writhing obstacle that slows the ones behind. It's brutal, it's efficient, and it preserves your stamina. You're not hero swinging for headshots. You're mechanically disabling locomotion and moving on. The ones you dropped aren't your problem for the next 6 hours. By then, you're gone. Here's where people make mistake number 3. They assume more weapons means more options. Wrong. More weapons means more weight, more maintenance, more complexity, and more decisions under stress. You want to be so familiar with your tools that accessing them is muscle memory, not a tactical decision tree. The sledge, the Halligan, the prybar, they nest together in a single weight distribution system. The sledge balances the Halligan on your back. The prybar keeps your waist weighted. You're carrying about 22 pounds of steel distributed across your core and belt line, and every piece serves 3 purposes minimum. Weapon 4 is the one that saves your life in ways you won't see coming. A serious LED flashlight, at least 1,000 lumens, with a crenellated strike bezel and a tailcap switch. Not a headlamp, not your phone light. A dedicated handheld with enough output to dominate a dark space and enough battery life to last through a 3-day hole-up. This isn't about seeing. This is about controlling space through light dominance. Zombies react to stimulus. Light overwhelms their targeting. You strobe 1,000 lumen beam into a packed room, and you've got 2 seconds of confusion while their visual processing fries. That's enough time to move, to reassess, to not die in a doorway because you walked into an ambush. The flashlight becomes a ranging tool. You clear corners without exposing yourself, bounce light off mirrors to see around barriers, signal to other survivors without giving away your exact position. At night, whoever controls light controls the engagement. You can project force and appear more numerous than you are. You can fake movement in one direction while you move in another. And that strike bezel? That's your stealth weapon. Zombies are soft targets: skull, temple, eye orbit, throat. The bezel concentrates force into hardened steel teeth. You're not punching. You're driving forward with your body weight behind it, and 6 ounces of aluminum becomes a surgical tool. It's quiet, it's fast, and it works when you're grappling in tight spaces where you can't swing anything bigger. The flashlight lives in your dominant hand or on a chest mount, always accessible, always ready. Battery management becomes a survival skill. You carry rechargeable 18650 cells and a solar panel, because this tool doesn't work dark. Weapon 5 is the one everybody forgets until they need it desperately. A quality fixed blade knife, 5 to 7 inches, full tang, drop point, or tanto blade. Not a folding knife, not a Rambo survival monstrosity, not a tactical mall ninja special. Something from a reputable maker with a blade you can sharpen on concrete if you have to. This knife is your utility survival tool first, weapon last. It opens cans, cuts cordage, pries, digs, scrapes and processes everything from food to first aid. But let's talk about the weapon role, because most people get this catastrophically wrong. A knife is a last-ditch grappling tool for when everything has gone to absolute shit. You don't stab zombies. Stabbing requires repeated strikes, creates blood spray, and exposes you to transmission with every thrust. If you're close enough to knife fight a zombie, you've already made 3 mistakes. The knife is for cutting through grasping hands when you're pinned, severing at the wrist or elbow to break grips. It's for emergency field amputations if someone gets bitten and you're far enough from the bite to maybe stop transmission. It's for mercy kills when someone's turning and you need quiet efficiency. The knife also becomes your psychological safety net. When everything else fails, when you're exhausted and broken and the world has compressed to just surviving the next minute, you've got something sharp and reliable. It's intimate, it's personal, and it anchors you to reality when panic sets in. You maintain it, you sharpen it, you check it compulsively because it's something you can control when everything else is chaos. So let's recap what you're actually carrying. Prybar on belt, Halligan and sledge in pack, flashlight on chest, knife on belt. Total weight may be 25 pounds, including sheaths and accessories. Compare that to the 40-pound tactical fantasy with its magazines, optics, and ego, and you're faster, quieter, and exponentially more versatile. These 5 tools breach, barricade, illuminate, and kill, in that order of priority, because survival is 90% logistics and 10% violence. Here's what this loadout really does that firearms can't. It makes you valuable. When you reach other survivors, you're not just another mouth to feed with a gun everyone's already carrying. You're the person who can open locked doors, reinforce shelters, work in darkness, and solve structural problems. You bring skills and tools that create safety for groups. That makes you an asset, not a liability. That keeps you alive when the lone wolf types get excluded from communities or shot for their ammunition. The practical advice is simple. You can assemble this entire loadout for under $300 at any hardware store and outdoor supplier. Buy quality, but not boutique. You want tools that take abuse and keep working. Practice with them. Get comfortable with the weight distribution. Learn to move through doors, upstairs, over obstacles while carrying this setup. Your body needs to know where everything is without thinking. The survival rating with this loadout against slow-moving, infected in suburban environment, 7 out of 10 for the first 30 days if you're smart about noise, discipline, and movement. Long-term survival depends on whether you find a defensible position and a community, but you've got the tools to earn your place when you get there. The pros: versatility, reliability, indefinite function without resupply, psychological advantage of competence. The cons: requires physical fitness to employ effectively, offers no standoff capability, makes you vulnerable to anyone with firearms if they decide you're a threat. But here's the real assessment. Most people won't make it 30 days, regardless of loadout, because they'll panic, make noise, attract attention, and die in a crush of bodies outside a Walmart. The weapons don't save you. Your decision-making saves you. These 5 tools just make good decisions physically possible. All right, your turn. Look at what you've actually got planned for your apocalypse loadout. Be honest with yourself. Can you maintain it? Can you carry it for 8 hours? Does it require ammunition, batteries, or replacement parts you won't find? Are you tooled for fighting or surviving? Would you trade your AR-15 for a Halligan bar if it meant eating tonight? Drop your loadout in the comments and defend your choices. No fantasy, no tactical nonsense. Just what you'd actually trust your life to when the power goes out and the dead stop staying dead. If this made you rethink your entire survival strategy, you're in the right place. Subscribe for more tactical reality that destroys your comfortable assumptions. Hit the notification bell because these strategies matter when everyone else is repeating the same mistakes. And remember, you don't need to outfight the apocalypse. You just need to outlast everyone who thinks they can.